Hey everyone, and welcome. This is a special devotional from the team here at You Need Faith in Jesus. Today, we're diving deep into one of the most personal and, honestly, one of the most powerful psalms in the entire Bible, Psalm 116. It's this raw, unfiltered journey from the absolute brink of despair to this incredible outpouring of love and devotion. And it all kicks off with one simple, powerful statement.
You know, what's so amazing is that the psalmist doesn't start with some big, abstract theological idea or a long list of God's attributes. Nope, he starts with love. And this isn't just some vague, fuzzy feeling. It's a direct response to something God did. I love the Lord because he hath heard my voice and my supplications. This is a love that was born in the fire, from the personal experience of being truly heard when he needed it most.
And right there, that's really the heart of this psalm. This powerful love wasn't forged in a time of peace and quiet. It was born in a moment of absolute crisis. So let's dive in and really look at the struggle that prompted this incredible bond of thanksgiving.
Okay, so for our first section, we're going to dig into this foundational idea, a love that literally comes from being listened to. It's all about how God's personal, focused attention can completely transform our relationship with him. I mean, just think about the imagery here for a second. God inclined his ear. That's this beautiful picture of the creator of the entire universe leaning in, tilting his head just to catch the faintest whisper of our prayer. And because of that one intimate act, the psalmist makes a lifelong promise. Therefore will I call upon him as long as I live. It changes everything for him.
And this, right here, is such a huge takeaway for all of us. When you truly believe that God leans in to listen to you, prayer stops being just a 911 call for emergencies. It becomes a continuous, ongoing conversation with the Father who is always, always attentive.
All right, so let's get into the nitty-gritty of what the psalmist was actually facing. Because you see, to really understand the height of his praise, we first have to understand the depth of his pain.
Wow. I mean, the language here is just so intense, isn't it? He felt completely surrounded, compassed by death itself. He says the pains of hell, which refers to his Sheol, the grave, had literally gotten a hold of him. He was trapped. There was no human way out. And in that moment of total helplessness, what was his only move? He called upon the name of the Lord.
So what does that really mean, to call on the name of the Lord? It's so much more than just saying a name. It's an appeal to everything God is, his whole character, all of his authority, and all of his power to save. It's an act of faith so fundamental that it's echoed word for word in the New Testament promise in Acts chapter 2. Whosoever shall call on the name of the Lord shall be saved.
Okay, so the psalmist cries out and boom, God answers. But why? Why did God answer? This next section gets into the reason for God's help. And it's not random, it's not arbitrary, it flows directly from his unchanging, faithful character.
Well, the psalmist actually lays it out for us. He tells us exactly who this God is. He is gracious. He gives us good things we don't deserve. He is righteous. He always does what's right. He is merciful, withholding the punishment we absolutely do deserve. And he is a preserver of the simple. Now, that doesn't mean unintelligent. It means the humble, the ones who know they need help. The psalmist says, I was brought low and he helped me. It's right there in our weakness that we find his strength.
And because he knows who God is, the psalmist does something really powerful here. He basically starts preaching to himself. He commands his own anxious soul, return unto thy rest. And how can he do that? Because he has the receipts. He remembers God's faithfulness, for the Lord hath dealt bountifully with thee. This teaches us something huge. True rest isn't the absence of problems, it's the memory of God's provision.
And this right here brings us to the absolute core, the turning point of this entire psalm. This is the moment where everything shifts from just receiving God's incredible deliverance to trying to figure out how on earth to respond to it. First, just think about how complete this rescue was. Verse 8 tells us God didn't just do a partial rescue. He delivered the psalmist's soul from death, his eyes from tears, and his feet from falling. I mean, it was a total top-to-bottom restoration. So, after being saved so completely, you'd think his first thought would be, whew, I'm safe, right? But it's not. His very next thought is a profound question, a question that should honestly stop every single one of us in our tracks. What shall I render unto the Lord for all his benefits toward me? And you have to understand, this isn't the question of someone trying to pay back a debt. This is the cry of a heart that is so full, so overflowing with gratitude that it's just desperate for an outlet. The psalmist knows he can never repay God, but he just has to do something.
So that's the big question. How does he even begin to answer it?
Well, the rest of the psalm is basically his answer, and it serves as this amazing practical guide for us. So let's break down the 4 actionable steps he lays out for how we can express our thanksgiving.
So he lays out this 4-part blueprint. First up, he says he'll take the cup of salvation. He's going to fully receive and embrace the gift God offers. Second, he's going to call upon the name of the Lord, showing his gratitude through ongoing dependence, not just in emergencies. Third, he declares, "Truly I am thy servant," willingly binding himself to God in service. And fourth, he's going to do it all out in the open, paying his vows in the presence of all his people. In that last point, the public part is so important that it brings us to our final section. The psalmist makes it crystal clear that this intensely personal experience he had isn't meant to stay a private secret. It has to become public worship.
What this shows us is a timeless spiritual truth, one that echoes all the way through the Bible. Right here in Psalm 116, the psalmist says, "Because God loosed my bonds, he is now God's servant." Fast forward hundreds of years, and the Apostle Paul says the same thing in Romans. Because we are made free from sin, we become servants to God. You see the pattern? Freedom from bondage always leads to willing service.
You see, the psalmist makes it crystal clear. For him, belief and speaking out are linked. His faith wasn't some quiet, internal state of mind. It literally compelled him to speak, to cry out to God even when he was in deep trouble. And get this, hundreds of years later, who quotes this exact verse? The Apostle Paul. In 2 Corinthians, he says that just like the psalmist, we also believe and therefore speak. It's this incredible, unbroken chain of authentic faith throughout history, a faith that simply cannot stay silent.
And that's how the whole psalm wraps up, with this big, booming command. Praise ye the Lord! Hallelujah! The psalmist takes his very personal song of deliverance and turns it into a corporate invitation for the entire community to join him in worship. It's a powerful reminder that our personal stories of God's faithfulness are meant to be fuel for the faith of others. So, all of this brings us back to a final challenge for you and me. We've walked with the psalmist from a desperate cry all the way to a public declaration of praise. We've seen that a real love for God is born from that personal, intimate experience of Him leaning in and listening to us. So the question for all of us is this: how will we take our personal gratitude and make it public this week?